So super sad today. We lost a whole bunch of footage that was meant to be for this video, so now we're reshooting the entire video. Last weekend we had a big event for Mini Z stuff, and I cleared off a bunch of footage. I had a whole pre-edited, probably about 2-3 hours worth of editing on this video done, and it was one of the videos I cleared off and oopsed. So lesson learned. Let's get on with this video again, and it's probably not going to be nearly as detailed, but it's okay. You'll get the point, and it's a pretty cool upgrade. So we're going to pull some of the stuff back apart and show you what we did. So what we're using here is something called Bullet Weights lead wire. This is the 3/16 diameter solid core wire. Remember, when you're messing with lead, don't get it into any open cuts. Don't put your hands in your mouth or eyes, and wash your hands when you're done. It is toxic, so be careful with that. But what we did is we went and we cut a section of this that we had measured out. I don't remember the measurements now, but let's see if we can figure it out real quick. That's right. You're probably going to want to cut a section of about 56 millimeters. Now, it depends on how you're doing it, but you can just take the raw wire and wrap it around something. Man, I had so many good jokes in the previous one. I said wrap it around your tool and then had a little pop-up. It was funny. Anyway, you can wrap it around and get a bend. Like I said, maybe use the end of your tool to kind of wrap it around and get it nice and round. Back it off a little, bend these in. You don't want to deform it too much because then you lose kind of the mass that it is. And you'll see that when we decide to flatten this out. Okay. And because lead's so malleable, you can kind of just push it in there and make it fit. But don't push too hard. If you push too hard, you're going to crack your wheel. So if it's not fitting and you're giving it a decent amount of force, you feel like, oh, it's just not really going very well, then just back it off, pull it out, and you can trim it off a little bit. Now, when you trim this, you can kind of trim it at just a little bit of an angle. So don't trim it completely straight, just a little bit of an angle. And then it lets you meet up nice with the other end. Okay, now if you're going to flatten these out like I did, you can see here, they look much better when they're flattened out. And then I took an X-Acto knife and I scored it. You're going to lose a little bit of weight because you're having to shrink the diameter, because as you flatten it out, obviously the diameter of the rod itself is kind of flattening and going outward, right? So you're losing thickness this way, which means you're going to lose a little bit of weight, but nothing too crazy. Man, as I'm doing this again, I forget just how much I went into on this and how much I showed. We even weighed it out. 1 second. So these are the hot racing wheel inserts for the machete wheels, which are the stock wheels basically, and they weigh 9.5 grams, 9.6 according to this. And our weight here is right at about 10. And then once we flatten these out and make them look like rotors, we're right at 9.4, 9.5. It just kind of depends on how flat you made them and how much you had to take out of the diameter of it going this way because you flattened it out so much. But you can get right at 10 grams if you're real careful with how you do it and don't flatten them too much. You could also, theoretically, these fit in here pretty well, right? And there's a good amount of room. So really, if you wanted to, you could actually probably take 2 weights worth. And I haven't done it, but there should be enough space, especially if you flatten them pretty good or flatten, the second one really well. And you're gonna have a lot of weight in there. That's 30 grams. The wheels and tires themselves, I believe, weigh 10. Yeah, so they're at 10.8. So you can end up with basically 30 grams in each wheel and tire, which is an additional 20, or with just the one, an additional 10, which is 40 or 80 extra grams, which is quite a bit. That is very, very significant in just your wheels. Now, the more weight you put in your wheels, of course, the more strain you're putting on your driveline and your motor and your ESC. So I wouldn't overdo it unless you upgrade those things. Then you can probably put the double in there. I would just go with the one though, the extra 9 grams. Again, these things, I have to look it up again, but these things are like 15 bucks hold on. Yeah, these are 10 bucks for 2. So for a set of 4, you're looking at 20 bucks. Whereas this whole thing, which we can probably make 4 or 5 rigs worth of wheel weights out of, is like 6 or 7 bucks, I think. We'll put the link in the description below. But yeah, it's much cheaper. Yep, just checked, 6 bucks. Shipped to my door. And in the previous videos, you saw there are some other ways we can use this stuff. So you can put them in your shock reservoirs and get extra weight by sticking them in little shock reservoirs and whatnot. So it's pretty cool, nice and handy to have around. I'm sure you can even take a piece, flatten them out, make some pieces out of flattened lead, and add it up here instead of these steel weights, or put it on your axle, or all kinds of stuff you can do to try to help get weight down. We like this way because, well, they look good and they're hidden. They're not like out and sloppy on your truck. They look like they're supposed to be there. So we really like that. So to flatten this, we just got a nice flat surface and a hammer, and we just kind of go around and just kind of tap it down. Now remember, you want to test fit as you're doing this, because you're going to lose a little bit of shape if you're not evenly doing it, and you're going to gain diameter, which means it can no longer fit in your wheels, right? So we're no longer fitting because we flattened it out too much. Well, maybe not too much, we started with excess. So then you can go ahead and cut down just a little bit of your diameter here. And again, every time you have to cut down your length to make your diameter smaller, you're losing weight. So try to not go too far. All right, we're good still. Let's go ahead and drop it down, see if we can get a little bit more squareness out of it. Okay. And again, we spent more time the first time doing this. And there we go, right? And now we've got our wheel in there. And we even showed it before we pounded it down. It did not look, it was fine. If you don't want to do this step, you don't have to. And if you want the extra weight, you lose about 0.5 gram. But it looks round in there. You can see it just looks like you've got the round rod in there. Whereas doing it this way looks much better. And then we went ahead and we just took an X-Acto and we basically scored the lines into it while it was, sitting down. You can kind of draw a line through it and make some concentric spirally lines and go from something that looks like this to something that looks like that. Okay. And again, this is going to get you about 10 grams per wheel, which is quite a bit. It's 40 grams total, and it's all low. We talked about this in the last video as well. The weight being down low, weight being unsprung, anything below the springs is good. You ideally don't want rotating masses because it's rough on your motor and driveline, but again, we're going to make an exception here since it's a budget deal. And again, once you upgrade your motor and your ESC, it can handle a lot more weight, and people will go with brass wheels and brass knuckles and brass wheel weights and extended wheels. And you can see on some of our other guys here, you can see all the brass here. This is a lot of black, but these are brass as well. There's also extra wheel weights. We got extra wheel weights on these. So the motors can handle it once you upgrade that electronics and stuff. But again, for a budget, this will work great because it adds enough weight without being detrimental to our drivetrain. Trying to remember what else I covered. We did some painting, pretty awesome. That video was going to be so good, guys. I feel sick about it. It was fun. We had a lot of little fun quips and jokes, and let's see, what else did we do? I think that's all we did. I think all we did was the wheel weights for that, and maybe we changed up our lights a little. I can't remember if that was the other video. But we went ahead and got all of our performance stuff as well, so let's do that again. So we remember what the other thing we did, because it wasn't obvious. We took and shaved down our stock hex hubs so that there wasn't as much binding, and so that we could tighten the wheels down further. One of the things I tried to make sure to point out was that when you're sanding these down, whether they're the brass ones or these ones, or any like wheel weights that have that sit against the pin, ideally you want to make sure you're sanding these down very equally. So as you're sanding, you want to kind of turn them in your fingers. Turn them maybe 90 degrees, sand, turn it 90 degrees, sand, turn it 90 degrees. Because even though you think you're holding it flat to the ground as you're sanding it, or flat on the table as you're sanding it, you've got a little bit of pressure coming from one side and another. So by sanding it and then turning it 90, sand it, you're going to keep it more consistent and more flat. So just another thing to point out. And again, the idea is to get the pins, the axle pins, I don't know if you can, it's kind of blurring when I do it, but get the axle pins to sit in the slot. So that you can, when you're tightening your wheel, it's pushing this up against the pin versus pushing the ears or this ridge up against your bearing. All right. So hopefully that can also help you out. I talk about it in a couple other videos as well, but I just pointed it out in this video because it is something that we did while we had all the wheels off. We figured we might as well sand them down and get it a little bit better fit there. And yeah, so I figured I'd show that here. So this is with the extra wheel weights. There's an extra 68 grams total between the wheel weights, the front and the rear, or just an extra 40 with just the wheel weights from the previous video. Biggest problem it looks like we're having is the tire's not sticking. So we're at 50 to 51 on the up. Let's go ahead and do the down. $50 on the down. And then we'll go ahead and do the side hilling. So 34, 35, somewhere in there. Doesn't seem to help a whole lot. Kind of surprised actually, but the real world is where you're going to see a huge difference. All right, we've got our extra wheel weights that we made, our rotors, and we're going to see how it does in the real world now. Real world, my living room. So I hope you were able to see some of the difference in the real world examples on how much better it did perform compared to stock, and then even compared to just the servo weights. It's obviously much better than stock. In stock, we couldn't even get up the first rock really. With the servo weights, we were able to get up, but it was difficult and it took a few tries. And then we got much further up the course with the wheel weights as well. So it makes a big difference. We also got got some new battle scars already right here, and a scratch there, and you can see some of the paint coming off here. I think even over here we're kind of rough. We're roughing her up, but that's okay. I don't know if you noticed on one of the rocks that's kind of more of a flat rock. It has a little bit of an angle in it. You're getting hung up. Part of that is once you're up there, you're still hitting on the bumper. So maybe you need to find a way to pull this bumper back in a little bit. And there are ways to do that. We can change out the brackets. Again, we're trying to do this with existing parts and without spending a lot of money. We don't know if the money expenditure on new brackets and stuff is really worth the fix here yet. So again, maybe when we go to a little bit more extreme build where we're not on free budget or very, very, very low budget, then we'll consider it. Again, the point of the stuff that does cost money, where I'm saying it's $5, $6, the wheel weights, they're big impacts. You know, spending $5 or $6 to be able to make wheel weights and then for 4 or 5 other vehicles is a way better cost benefit than spending $5 or $6 to change your front bumper bracket. So again, that's kind of the point when it comes to spending a little bit of money. We're trying to get the best benefit for that dollar. Other than that, you know, we think that we're in a good place. I mentioned the rock and it was hanging up. So yeah, some of it's the bumper, but also it's our links. So in our next video, we're going to do something with these links. And that's another very cool, and it's free upgrade. Well, I mean, you need some materials. You need a piece of wood and some of the screws and a hairdryer, but we're going to fix these links. And so we'll show you that in the next video. So be sure to subscribe so that you know when that comes. If you hit the bell, it'll notify you whenever we upload a new video. So that's what the little bell icon is when everybody's saying hit the bell. So subscribe, hit the bell, and then in the comments, you help us by raising the video in the ranks. So when you comment and you tell us your thoughts, what you've done to yours, or if you're going to do this to yours, it helps us out. So again, just a click for you for the subscribe, but it means the world to me. And yeah, it makes all of this worth it when we see new subscribers. You know, losing all the footage we did I almost didn't want to make the video at all. I'm like, I don't want to do this all over again. I think it ended up being maybe a little bit shorter, so good for viewers, I guess. But it was rough. So the subscriptions definitely make it all worth it. So I hope you guys get out there and run your trucks, have a good time, run them, smash them, bash them, crash them. And like always, try not to break the expensive parts.